Since we're moving into our labs on the different types of chemical reactions, they will be investigation labs where you will actually you will practice doing the different types of chemical reactions. So to get ready for that, you need to understand what signs there are that tell us that a chemical reaction or a chemical change has taken place. All right, so I will be using in this video, I will be talking about reactants, because we want to get in the habit of that. Reactants yielding products. So please remember those two terms. So what we start out with in a chemical reaction are the reactants, and they yield or produce products. So you get something new, right, in a chemical reaction. All right, the first thing we have to talk about, I want to give you an example of a chemical change, because when you have a chemical reaction, the matter, the reactants that you start out with, are totally different from the products that you end up with. In this case, we have sodium. Okay, sodium is actually a metal, and it's highly reactive. It's explosive in water, in fact, and it is when it reacts with chlorine, which is a greenish yellow gas. It's actually poisonous and would kill you. They yield table salt, sodium chloride. Okay, now table salt is not dangerous. It's not explosive when you put it in water. Every time you went to cook pasta, your kitchen would explode, right? So we get something completely different. It has different properties, different characteristics from the reactants that combine to form it. So that's where we're headed in our study. That you've had a chemical change or a chemical reaction is the formation of a precipitate. So when you mix two liquids together, say in a chemical reaction, they might form a solid that falls out or precipitates out. In this case, if we take milk, which is a liquid, and lemon juice, which is a liquid, and we react them, they will yield this precipitate here, these solids that form, okay, that fall out of the liquid, and those are actually milk curds, like cheese curds, probably similar to cottage cheese. So you know that a chemical change or chemical reaction has taken place because you see this precipitate fall out of the liquid. So that's one sign that a chemical change. The next indication that you would have that there's a chemical change is bubbles. Anytime you have gas production from a reaction, then you have more than likely had a chemical change, a chemical reaction. And the example that I want to use is photosynthesis. Now, in photosynthesis, your reactants are going to be carbon dioxide, okay, and water. The carbon dioxide is absorbed, or well, it enters the leaf through the stomata on the underside of the leaf typically, and get into the leaves, and then the water is absorbed by the roots and travels up through the xylem to all parts of the plant, and particularly to the leaves where photosynthesis happens. And then the chlorophyll has to be there. I'm going to do it like this, chlorophyll, because the chlorophyll that's in plants, which is what gives them their green color, actually is able to trap light energy from the sun. So this is the fuel, if you will, that runs the process of photosynthesis. Now the product, so these things yield sugar for the plant, okay, and then that sugar is taken through the phloem to all parts of the plant for it to be transferred into an energy that the plant can use to grow and reproduce. But it also produces oxygen gas, okay, and that is released through the stomata as well. So because we have this gas formation, this is another indication that a chemical reaction has taken place. So that's a little mini lesson bonus for you right there on photosynthesis. Another indication that we've had a chemical change or chemical reaction is a color change. In this banana changes color as it oxidizes basically. Okay, it reacts with the oxygen in the air, that's called oxidation, and so it'll change color. You can also see this really easily with avocados. Another thing that we have to talk about if we want to go back to plants is when the leaves change color in the fall. So you start in the summer with this lovely green leaf, right? Okay, and then maybe in the fall you end up with the same leaf, but it's a red or a golden color, right? So that's how we know that another chemical reaction has taken place. Another example or sign that a chemical change has happened is a change in energy. And there are two types of reactions typically. There's exothermic, which we'll talk about first, and endothermic. Now in an exothermic, if you look at the name exo, it's like the same as exit. So in this type of reaction, in this type of chemical change, you have energy that's being released, energy that's exiting. So typically what happens is you will have an increase in temperature around that. So it's not always thermal energy that is released. Sometimes it's light energy, but thermal energy is most common, and you will often have a temperature increase. This happens a lot in neutralization reactions, which we'll talk about later too. An endothermic reaction is another example of energy change, which indicates that there's been a chemical reaction taking place, is endothermic. And in this one, it's the opposite of exothermic. It's actually absorbing energy from the surroundings, typically thermal energy. So you'll have a decrease in temperature. Now, one example of that would be baking soda, which is a base, and vinegar, which is an acid. This photo I got, these are tips for cleaning your drains, like your sink drains. But anyway, so you see there's a lot of gas production here, but there's also the temperature will drop in this particular reaction, not like other neutralization reactions. So you can actually put a thermometer in when you combine. You put a little thermometer here, okay, and the temperature will drop when you add the vinegar to the baking soda. Those are the signs that you've had a chemical change or a chemical reaction, and you need to remember those, because when we do our labs on chemical reactions, you will have to demonstrate an understanding of why there was a chemical reaction and how you know that chemical reaction happened. All right, thank you. Hope this was helpful.